these methodologies. And we had largely pulled these together for the sake of struggle in our situations to four. Gandhi, as he worked, made investigation of the issues a primary issue. When he got a complaint from a group of farmers, essentially, on the issue of how they were being mistreated, he put on a whole network of investigating it so that he got a large picture of it, and he was able to present that large picture to everyone. And they honed their movement out of that investigation, what we can do. So we used the idea of focus, and focus meant not only that we were going to be activists, we knew we had done a lot of work on looking at what the situation was. And one of the things I recognized was that, let's say the Birmingham campaign, 1963, that Martin Luther King Jr. and SCLC and our organizers and the local pastors who were part of it and the local students and others, we knew much more about segregation and its rapaciousness and violence than did the mayor or the chief of police or the governor or the president of the United States.
Wow. Good, absolutely.
That was, yeah, just off the cuff. I used to avoid going to press conferences with our groups in Nashville and elsewhere because I felt the questions from the reporters were so amateur. Felt they had no depth. And I did not want to have to deal with that. So I never went to a press conference in Nashville, for example, in the whole campaign. And very rarely elsewhere. So focus, and focus also has another meaning. We made a laundry list in Nashville of the plight of the Negro that was probably 400 or 500 items. If we broke down the items, we probably had many more than that. I never tried to count them, but it was a laundry list of all the things that were negative in the life of the Negro in Nashville because of racism and segregation and laws and customs and the attitudes of far too many people. But you can't deal with 500 issues at the same time. So we did that investigation in Nashville among ourselves before we acted in order to be able to focus on a primary target for the first campaign. And that was the desegregation of public life in downtown Nashville. Now, no one in the United States at that time had chosen as a target desegregation of downtown Nashville. No city, no place, no NAACP, Congress of Racial Equality, no group of ministers had chosen a target, desegregate public life in Nashville.
Or any other city.
Right, pardon?
Or any other city.
That's right. That's absolutely correct. But, and I will say again, that in the case of the Nashville instance, it was black women. They did most of the shopping in downtown Nashville, the central shopping area. They said it's always an atmosphere of hostility. It's always mad at you. Some black women who had the means and the wherewithal never shopped in Nashville for themselves or their family. They shopped elsewhere. They went to Chicago or Cleveland or New York to shop. I met such people, you see, for the first time in my life. So focus meant not only that you take this very large environment, and you begin to reduce it to the pieces that you can digest, that you can where you can establish achievable goals. So in the case of Nashville, that meant, among other things for us, the white colored signs had to come down off of waiting rooms and public buildings and water fountains. That was one of the practical meanings of it. A whole list of things then could take place. But the focus allowed us then to direct our campaign at that target. And of course it happened, it did not happen all at once. It did happen in an evolutionary fashion. But by doing a focus, we could spend our energy and develop the powers that had a common direction. I'll give you an illustration of this from the women's movement. Why has not the women's movement passed in every city or urban area, or every community, suburban area, and in every state, a basic principle? We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all women are equal. All women are endowed. And there was some such public demonstration to tell the governors and the mayors and the Congress that it is time to break through the ideologies and mythologies of the inferiority and second-class level of the women Homo sapiens to make it public philosophy. Now, I don't think that, I'm not trying to suggest that that's the task, but I would like to suggest that how do you counterattack? How do you counterattack the oppression of women if you do not raise a public awareness that women are included in the notion that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all are created equal, and so forth and so on. How do you change the ethos in our society as long as we have a primarily male-dominated society and we think that women are inferior?